I'll start it off. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how do you think you guys are going to kind of handle the center spot over the next couple of weeks? Obviously, Kavon will start. You'll play some small ball, but I mean, is there concern that you only really have one traditional center healthy right now?
I mean, it's a concern anytime you lose anybody for any stretch of time, and especially a guy that is in the rotation, but we'll figure it out. And injuries are obviously a part of every season, no matter when they come. You just got to be able to adjust. I don't know what the answer is, what the rotation is. But we've been working on some things with our small ball lineups, and, EP at the 5, D-Lee at the 4. Juan will play a little bit probably, with some minutes available. So just all hands on deck.
Steph, how would you characterize the improvements you guys have made on defense, especially since Draymond has entered into the lineup?
We've had really good moments. We've had, certain games where we didn't defend the three-point line, and that cost us heavily. But for the most part, our identity in terms of making teams take tough shots, being better communicating on switches and different coverages that we have, that's important. And just it's a commitment every night, even when it doesn't all the way click. You might have certain segments of the game that you can create momentum or, really blow a lead out the water and win a game, with just the talent that we have on the defensive end. Obviously, Andrew and Kelly have been awesome. Andrew, especially in terms of, protecting the rim. At the guard spot, it's pretty crazy how he's been able to do that. But like you said, Draymond being the anchor, Loon coming in, doing his job. Wise is picking up, things in terms of, where he needs to be on the floor and verticality. We obviously have things we got to work on in terms of rebounding and fouling. It seems like if we don't foul and we get, it's a one-shot possession, our field goal percentage is really, really strong. So those two things we got to correct and we can get to another level.
You don't sound too you sound like there's still plenty of room to go, even though I think you're tied for 10th in defensive rating, which is kind of where you guys just said you wanted to be. You still sound like there's a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, it's just sustaining that for longer stretches of time. Over a course of a week or two, playing a lot of different lineups and different schemes and, different threats at different positions, being able to maintain that consistency, but we still foul too much. And so if you're being picky, that's something that we can definitely get better at, because that'll help our offense too. Not going against set defenses and keeping the flow and the pace of the game where we want it.
Steph, my name's Abby, and I'm
sorry, go ahead.
Is that okay? All right. Calling in from NBC Sports Boston. So I have a couple of big picture questions, if you'll humor me. The first one, we have Scal on our broadcasts, and he talks a lot about team identity and the importance of knowing what that is. And for a team that has championship aspirations, why is that so important to establish early?
It just gives you confidence. It helps you when your shots aren't falling. It helps you have an understanding of how you're going to create good shots. There's a chemistry on the court, no matter what lineup is out there, and you're flowing through rotations. And on a night to night, it's just that's where the consistency comes. We've seen teams like, Utah, for example, who have been together, for the last 3 years with that lineup. Mike Conley coming in last year, but they understand, where shots are going to come, how the ball is supposed to move. Defensively, they have a certain set of principles that everybody buys into, and night after night, they give themselves a great chance to win because of that. Then, if shots fall or they don't, you can kind of chalk up a loss to that. But for the teams that are figuring it out, some nights you just don't have it because you're not all on the same page. You don't know exactly what you're trying to do when things aren't flowing perfectly. So there's a confidence that comes to that night in, night out that it develops over time. And if you're committed to the big picture goal of understanding who you are.
And then
Steph-
seeing the ascension of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown from afar, do you see any parallels between the experiences that you and Klay had coming up together, drafted by the same team?
For sure. I mean, starting there, and then, you know, you have two talented guys that have to figure out how to play off each other, and you know, one guy's got it, the other guy has to stay engaged, and vice versa, and you both elevate yourselves, you know, in that same process. So yeah, they got thrown into the fire with me and Klay and Draymond. We didn't. They played in the finals, Eastern Conference Finals the first year when Jayson came on the scene. So like, they were thrown into big stages early, and they got that experience. I'm sure they benefited from that, but just understanding how they can both evolve and get the most out of their individual talent, but put it together and balance it with the rest of the guys. Definitely a lot of similarities there for sure.
Last one for me, I promise. For you, what's been the biggest test this season, working in all the new guys and trying to make everything work around you?
Well, everything's supposed to work with me. That's kind of the vibe that I'm trying to get to, where obviously I know how I like to play and know where my strengths are. It kind of goes to your first question around just forming that identity. And, you know, early in the season, it was one of those where, you know, those split second decisions and knowing where shots were going to come was a work in progress for everybody. And then defensively, obviously, without Draymond the first couple of games, we were kind of lost puppies. So I think a lot of it was just learning on the fly, not getting too down, you know, when you lose a game, because it's bound to happen, obviously. But there's some huge learning lessons that we had to you know, go through. And even now, it's just an emotional roller coaster with some of the inconsistencies that we've had, but we're trending in the right direction. And you know, we like the challenge. I like the challenge, and really excited to see, you know, how we can turn this into a pretty special year.
Steph, Chris Alvarez from ABC7. I saw on social media recently you congratulated Tom Brady for getting to the Super Bowl. I wonder what your first initial meeting was like with him, your impressions and conversations you have. You take anything from how he trains or mentality and implement that in your game and your basketball life?
We've been Under Armour brothers for a while, and I met him in 2014 at the Preakness out in Baltimore. We just lost to the Clippers in the first round, and so I had some free time, and I went over and met him there. Had a fairly decent conversation, and a lot of it, to your point, was seemed like he always was trying to pick up nuggets himself on like other guys from different leagues, and just that competitive fire seemed to, you know, even in his middle of his off season was still, you could see it in his eyes. So, you know, you appreciate greatness. It's amazing. You know, 7 years later, he's still chasing Super Bowls, and you know, it's one of those, every time you see him, you know, in the bright stages, you can't not watch. It's, you expect greatness to happen. So we'll be watching next week and see if we can get it done.
Steph, having gone through a lengthy rehab last year the way you did, how important do you think it is for Klay Thompson to be around the team? How did it lift your spirits last year? How do you think it's helping him now?
I mean, it's huge. You know, especially this being the second year, and you know, you want to be around. It's kind of double-edged sword a little bit. You want to be around the team, and you want to be a part of the vibe, and you know, just the energy, you know, in the locker room, in the weight room, in practice court, and obviously during games. But then when you get so close to it, you miss it more. So it's kind of a hard balance. But I think we can hopefully lift the spirits through some of the, you know, the rough days of rehab. We've, you know, everybody's been through that, knows what it's like. And, you know, for me, I was away from the team for the first 6 weeks, but after that, it was coming in, getting work in, being a part of film sessions, little stuff that kind of keeps you engaged mentally. That's the biggest thing. Physically, you have a long way to go, but mentally staying sharp, watching film, giving guys some pointers on what they see, that'll help him transition back when his body's ready. So, even him doing the broadcast, like you're thinking basketball, you're talking basketball, you're around it. And for any guy that's been at the level that he's at and where he wants to get back to, that's huge, in the meantime.
Hi, Steve. Maria Vidal for Top Deportes in Latin America. What would you say is your role in this team? And how do you manage people's expectations about your historic performances?
If you're around this league long enough, you experience a little bit of everything. And that's kind of how I've approached this season. We've had an amazing, 5-year run, 3 championships, all of that, and we're climbing back that, that mountain again. So my role is obviously just from a leadership perspective, continue to elevate my game on the court, lending my experience and what I see off the court for some of the young guys. But it's just a part of the NBA journey. I think about what people say about expectations and all that type of stuff, and it's hard not to hear it and respond and react to it. But at the end of the day, still in the fight, still have a lot left, in the tank, obviously, and want to get the most out of it.
Oh,
Steph. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, wider scope. Do you think about your title window, like that term, and whatever you believe that to be the next few years?
Absolutely. That's what you play the game for. There are things that are within your control and things that aren't. But all the little things that you do on a daily basis, all the work that you put in is building towards getting back to that stage and understanding, you're living in reality. So, unless you're playing quarterback for the Tampa Bay Bucks right now, it's a fine line between when you're at your peak and when you need to, really get the most out of what you got on the court. And then it's kind of the perspective. So definitely think about it.
Within that, how do you think about the pressure to make win now moves? I mean, organizationally, or the patient approach that right now it seems like, particularly this season with Klay out, you guys seem to be taking a more patient.
I mean, everybody has an opinion about what win now moves mean. And who's to say, there's no guarantee that anything works. So it's a matter of just everybody doing their job. That's from the top down, upstairs, everybody in the locker room figuring out what that actually means, buying into it. And, you roll with it. So for where we're at right now, we have a lot to prove this season in terms of how good we can actually be. And you live in that reality, and you also have a kind of a temperature check on some of the bigger agenda things that might be brewing. But at the end of the day, my job is to go play, figure out how to get our team where we need to be this year, get the best seeding in the playoffs, see what happens, and go from there.
Steph,
To follow up on that, how long do you think, in your mind's eye, you think that window is still kind of up and running for you in this group?
I mean, you're thinking this year and next year, you're thinking, with Klay coming back, you're thinking about all those different things. But right now, who's to say, we can't put pieces together? We have, I'm in the middle of my prime and thinking about, just all the things that we've gone through over the last 4 or 5 years that we can kind of build on. It's hard to say what the actual, number is, but I think we're in a good spot right now. Let's put it that way.
Hello, Steph. Chris from Greece. I would like to ask you, what will gonna be the biggest challenge on tomorrow's game? And Boston Celtics are a title contenders team. How far or how close you feel you are about to be a title contenders this season?
I mean, we're trending in the right direction. Same kind of answer, but they're playing well, obviously. like you said, they were there last year in the playoffs and had a chance to get over the hump. Have a consistent roster, so it'll be a good challenge tomorrow. Excited about the opportunity to play them. Hopefully, put another win together, and measure ourselves. That's the biggest thing with pretty much every game, and that game within the game. Of showing up against, whoever we're playing and some of the best teams, you kind of get a good measuring stick of where you need to be.
Steph, Kavan said that James had a pretty positive attitude. Obviously, if the injury hopefully is not that bad, but what do you like about just his mental makeup and his energy kind of for your team?
We love it. He's a workhorse. He's a sponge when it comes to, asking the right questions. There's a lot of people throwing a lot of things at him, and he's doing his best to implement them in the game and make the necessary adjustments. But he definitely has a positive attitude every time he comes to the locker room. He's about his business as he learns, and it's a good foundation to set a career on in terms of your work ethic, your attention to detail, and just understanding you do have a lot to learn, but you got to be ready for every game that comes, and even how you deal with an injury. Your attitude, it says a lot about you, who you are. So we like what we see.
I want to follow up on one more thing. You just said you feel like you're in the middle of your prime. How far do you think you can stretch that for?
We're gonna find out.
Does seeing Brady play at the level he's been playing at motivate you?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a different sport, different position, but it's definitely an awareness of the little things that you can do that I've been doing, that I'm doing now, that I can do going forward to make sure your body is able to recover, able to stay, in prime condition, so that you give yourself the best chance to be ready for season after season after season. And then you make the necessary adjustments of what your game needs to morph into or things like that. But at the end of the day, the approach and the discipline that he's demonstrated on what it means to be a professional athlete at that level with that, longevity, it doesn't happen by accident. So there are things that you can do to put yourself in a position to stretch it out even farther.
Steph, you're 32 right now, 33 in March. What is that in basketball years?
Well, I was going to say, after coming off the 5-year run, we played an extra season and a half in those playoffs, but then I got it back last year. So I don't know. I feel like I'm in my mid-20s right now. I don't know what that means. Maybe I'm just tricking myself. It's just a matter of, I guess the mind has to be strong to tell your body how young you are, how young you feel. So just running through that. I don't have any concerns about falling off anytime soon.
Steph, speaking of concerns, have you had to talk to Kavan about, keeping his humility now that he's like a commercial star?
Nah, man, I love Loon's acting debut, big time. They need to play that on the video board in our locker room on repeat.
He said it's in the grocery store, so he was happy about that.
You said what?
He said he sees himself in a grocery store, so he's pretty excited about that.
I love it.
Steph, have we talked about your commercial, the car commercial that's running on TV these days with the Steph and Steven?
You like it?
I do like it, yeah. Do you like it?
I love it. Having a little fun with something that's been a problem since I was a kid, and my name mispronounced even to this day. So still working on it.
No haggling.
I recommend a Wardell remix. What do you say?
We can do that. We can do that.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that. For tomorrow, 12 noon, we're going to aim to have Brad Wanamaker up here with the Ties back in Boston. Celtics in town. Anything between now and then, shoot me just for you, Abby. Good stuff. Shoot me an email or text, anything you need, let me know.
I think it's Stephen, Raymond.
About that.
Yeah, I'm glad Stephen came up here. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.